So I spend a lot of time working with young people in creative and non-creative capacities. So this week we're going to be talking about becoming a safety mediator. So we're talking about how do we work with our young people in order to create safe boundaries by working together. So a lot of the time, we tend to get into oppositional relationships around the internet. The internet becomes the bad thing in our lives. And so it's just about looking at strategies where it's not necessarily the bad thing, and we can work with our young people to create quality time on and off the internet. Um, I'm just moving the slide along. So there we go. So our company is Zico. We're based in the Innovation Center in UCD. We have been into over 650 schools. We've surveyed over 90,000 young people, and that's really important to us. We're a research-led company. So before we go into schools, we would normally do a survey in the school. So we get an understanding of how young people are using the internet, and then we prepare our presentations based on that research. So our head researcher is Dr. Marina Every. And Dr. Marina Every works with us. She's a senior cyber psychologist. She's also an assistant professor in UCD. And so a lot of this research has come from Dr. Marina's work, and we're going to be sharing that research with you over the course of the next 40 to 45 minutes. So if you have any questions for me during this evening's session, on the top left-hand side of your screen, you can see there a little question mark, and it says Q&A. So if you have any questions during the course of the night, you can pop the questions in there. And at the end of the session, I'll then try and get to as many questions as I can. And I know that some have been sent on email already, so I'll have a look at those too. So tonight, this evening, the next 40 minutes, all about empowering you as parents so that you understand the issues and the opportunities facing children online. Two words that I always think are very, very important: issues and opportunities. It's not just about the bad stuff. It's about what opportunities are there. And actually, we create more conversations around the opportunities and the positive stuff that's happening for children. And the more we can create positive interactions with their children, the more they will be willing to talk to us about stuff that actually worries them. So the issues. And then a series of actionable insights for you and your family. So practical things that you can take away and be able to implement after this evening's session. We really are all about this. The internet is a huge part of our lives. Different families to different degrees. But it's a very important part of children's social life, their educational life. It will become a hugely important part of their professional life. So we're all about teaching children the critical thinking skills so that they can keep themselves safe online. Now, of course, this is a graduated process. I always think of it the same as I think of allowing children out of the house and to explore the world on their own. So we would never think of, keeping children in the house for the rest of their lives, even though sometimes we might like to do that. And in fact, that has been enforced on us at the present moment. But, we want our kids to be able to go out and safely explore the world. So we gradually move away from that restrictive, and we teach them knowledge. So we teach them the safe cross code, how to safely cross the road, how to safely navigate the world. We teach them these skills so that then when they are out and about, they're able to think for themselves and able to protect themselves. And it's exactly the same on the internet. We're not interested in, as a company, looking at it as a restrictive model where we say there is going to be no internet or no internet access or no internet use. We're looking at giving young kids the knowledge so that they are able to think for themselves, they're able to critically think for themselves, and able to keep themselves safe with us, so that we're working together. That's what tonight is all about, so that we're mediating and co-working to keep our children safe on the internet. And so a part of that, we do sort of work a lot in schools, and we're pulling from the SPHE program. So it is about helping kids to understand where they sit, within their communities. So, there's the child, me and myself. There's me, myself, and my family. There's me, myself, and my community. So it's helping kids to understand that whatever activities they engage in or their perceptions around those activities have effects on a wider community, and vice versa. So we're all sort of interconnected to each other. My kids had a very funny. I've got two boys, and they were sort of trying to organize their internet usage, and they had a whole plan done up where son A had it for this amount of time and son B had it for that amount of time. And so I'm like coming in going, yeah, that's great, guys, but there's actually four of us in the house. So mum and dad were completely left out of the picture. So it is just, constantly bringing them into those circles of relationships and how their activities can affect other people. Um, so, one of the things we do know is that uh, technology is mediating our lives. So our activities, our social, our educational, our work activities are being mediated to a greater extent by technology, mediated by and on technology. Um, and particularly now in this time that we find that we're looking to technology more and more for outlets to connect with people, for activities, for education, for information. And it's not unusual now to have individual, family time is all individualized into different activities. So I know here in our house, uh, it's a pretty common occurrence that one child is on the Xbox, another child is on their iPad. They might be looking at YouTube videos, or they might be on TikTok, or they might be on Instagram. I might be doing some work up here on the laptop. My wife might be doing some work, or watching a TV show. Often, the two of us will be watching separate TV shows. So we're all doing different things. So there are obviously some great opportunities to this, but it's important that we just keep an eye on this, that we don't get pushed further and further into individualized activities, and that we find ways of gathering together and using the internet in ways um, that connect us rather than keep us apart. Um, and sometimes, like I was saying at the start, we can have very oppositional relationships with the internet. The internet can be seen as the bad person. Um, and I find that it's very easy for me to fall into this, that I find myself saying those classic things like, get off the internet. You're spending too much time on the internet. It's bad for you to be in the internet. The internet isn't a good thing. It does nothing for you. Or, because we would have strict rules around the dinner and around eating and around no internet usage while we're eating. So that things can end up getting confrontational very quickly. So it's like, put down your phone, take your earbuds out, stop doing that, stop doing this. Um, and this can, so our relationship with our children and the internet becomes something that's quite negative, and something that's constantly has us nagging or constantly has us judging our children and their usage of the internet. So I just want to run a quick poll just to get a snapshot of where you guys are feeling on this, and if this is part of your experience of how the internet is working. So that poll hopefully should have popped up there now. And so just to give us an indication of, do individual activities on screens negatively affect your family's face-to-face communication? So is this something that's a particular concern to you? And so I'll just leave that up there for a couple of seconds. And if anyone at any time, actually, if you want to send me a message, or if something like this isn't working, you can just pop in the Q&A section and I should be able to see that. So I don't see questions there yet. Okay. So I haven't got any feedback on that poll just yet. And I just want to be sure. Single choice. Great. Okay, we'll keep moving. So the next thing that we're going to be looking at, so, how do we solve these problems? How do we move away from something that's essentially negative into a more positive space? And that's really what we're looking at tonight, about creating quality family communication, because this is an essential step for children's well-being. And it's so important that when kids are at the primary school stage, that we develop and we nurture good communication skills, because these good communication skills are really going to be important to help us when they move into those adolescent years. Um, and always, to really keep in mind that technology isn't essentially the problem. These aren't technological issues. It is about relationships, and it is about fostering good relationships with the young people and keeping the lines of communication open with them as much as possible. And that's really our key function as parents, to develop positive communication with our young people. So, we're going to be looking at tonight about co-use with young kids. And having family activities and being able to share time on the internet together. So one of the things that I was looking at doing this week was to play a game of bingo online with my family, who are in Singapore, who are in London, who are in Gort in Limerick. And it's really to connect my young kids with their grandparents, because they can't see them at this particular time. And it was interesting, even in my approach, like when I went to do that, the first thing I went to do was to do it all myself. And then, I had to just remember that thing of, no, I should be doing it with them. So, it's just that stop and reflect, and go to the guys and say, hey, whatever you're doing on your individual projects there, let's come together as a family and let's do this together. And even giving over control to them so that they, get to, uh, so they get to work, so they get to be involved in the organization of it as well. And it does allow us a moment to sort of self-reflect on our own use of the internet. We are the role models, so we have to be the digital leaders. They are looking to us and they are emulating what we're doing. It's kind of the number one thing the kids say to me. If I say to them, look, I'm going to be meeting your parents tonight for a parent talk, what do you want me to say to them? Almost always, what they'll say is, don't tell me to get off the internet when you're on the internet. It's kind of the number one thing. So they are looking to us, and it is important that we show them what we want them to do. So how can parents deal with this? How can we sort of change this narrative where it's continuously a negative thing, and move into a space where we can actually work more closely with our young people, where we can be safety mediators, and we can organize co-use models. So that thing that I was talking about with the bingo, with the online bingo, is really a part of it. That we're it does take a little bit of research, it does take a little bit of work and our effort, that we discover activities that we can do together, and they can be quizzes, they can be this bingo thing, they can be playing games. For me, the big learning that I had to do, um, and it really was when my relationship around the internet changed, was around their use of FIFA. So, my boys would go and play football. I would be at their football matches. They'd go and play hurling. I'd be at their hurling matches. I'd be at their swimming. They'd go out and play with their friends. They'd come in. I'd say, how'd you get on? I was a part of their real life activities. And then they would sit down and play FIFA, and I used to never say a word to them. So I had to learn how to actually start communicating with them about their internet usage. So, it was simply just about me taking the time to sit down beside them while they were playing FIFA and ask them how they were getting on. Um, and that really changed our relationship around internet usage, because one of the things it showed me was all of the benefits that they were getting from it. So I went from sort of regarding the internet and games as being something that was kind of useless, or that wasn't going to be great for them, to actually seeing they're solving really complex problems. They're working out some really complex maths, buying and selling players, and being aware of how much money they have and how much money they're going to potentially earn. Understanding strengths and weaknesses of different players, understanding their strengths as compared to their friends, and then also their ability to talk to each other and solve complex social and emotional problems while they're talking to each other. So it opened me up to the world of positive things. And I was able to sort of compliment them on how they were playing, or when they won something. Oh my God, that's brilliant! You won something. And so we started to talk more openly and more positively about the internet. And because I was taking that time, then I could see, oh, this person has come in and started talking to you. Um, and I'm able to say, what do you do about that? And how can you solve that? So rather than this being something in the abstract and me telling them what to do, I'm actually there with them, seeing the thing happen, and we can talk about it and discuss it together. And this creates a space where they feel more empowered, and where I'm getting more information and becoming more aware of what's happening. And so I am in a better place to keep them safe. So it is about developing this capacity to regulate access and use of the internet together, working with young people to actually solve these problems together. So, and mediation, of course, is not a new thing. I mean, I grew up in an era where my parents were constantly saying the television is going to rot your brain, your eyes will turn into squares. Really, the television was the great big enemy. And I remember when videos were introduced, and even saying it now, it makes me feel like I'm 110. But when video recorders were introduced, I know that my parents just, waited and waited and waited, and they just didn't want this video player in the house because they were afraid of the negative consequences, what it was going to do to our lives, and we'd spend all of our time just watching videos. So, these things aren't new. And even, when I was talking to one of the parents one night, she was saying she had a great moment of self-reflection where she was going, when she was young, she'd be out with her friends all day, and then she'd come home, and the first thing she'd do is get on the phone and talk to her friends, and her father would go ballistic, saying, you spent all day with your friends, and now you come home and you spend more time with your friends. And she was able to see that actually her daughter is just doing the same thing. Her daughter is out with her friends and coming home and going on Snapchat and Instagram and spending more time with her friends. And that's an important learning, that kids, young people, don't see the offline and the online world as separately as we do. They're more linked, and they're more connected to their friends and to their social life on the internet than perhaps some of us might be. So this whole idea of mediating that time is not new. It's something a challenge that faces each generation. So, really, these are our top tips, or sort of Zico top tips to face this challenge head on, so that we engage children with conversation about what they do online. And it's really looking for any opportunity to talk to them and to spend time with them, and to encourage the things that we think are good, like me, learning more about FIFA and seeing the skills that they're learning, to encourage those and be part of that positive piece, and also, that helps us to become more aware when things aren't working. So engaging with children really is the number one. And as I often say, this isn't a cure-all. It's not like every time you sit down and talk to them about the internet, they're going to just open up and be full of all the joys of life. 9 times out of 10, they might be really annoyed or irritated or not want you to be part of that world. But it's the 1 time out of 10 that you get a bit of a flow, a bit of a conversation starts, and that's gold, and that's worth its weight. So it's to have realistic expectations as well, but to just take that time. And I was talking, I think certain parents are kind of heroes. And I remember talking to one parent, and I thought, you are a parenting hero, because she talked about her hatred of Minecraft. How every time she sat down and watched Minecraft, she just grinding her teeth at how completely boring, and she just couldn't get into it, enjoy it in any way. But she was taking the time to sit down with her child and hiding all of that and being really encouraging. And I just thought, that's incredible, and that's really what we're aiming towards. It's not so much that it's something that we want to do, or it's not all of a sudden that we're going to be on Minecraft making castles. But it is about checking in with our children and seeing the positives and the benefits for them. So engaging with children, and then we're looking at fostering co-use. So sitting down together. Now, obviously, we're spending more time on the internet at the moment. Last week we talked about how much time to spend on the internet and what's a good amount of time. So this, I'm not encouraging that suddenly we all spend all of our time on the internet, but for the times that you as a parent decide is the correct amount of time, having some time where you're sitting together and you're doing shared activities together. So even something as simple as saying, actually, we're going to watch a movie together. So we're not going to be all 4, 5, 6 of us in separate rooms or watching separate things. And we're actually just going to take time to watch a movie together. And I think that this actually needs a lot of preparation. I think we all know the sort of sit down to watch a movie and go onto Netflix or Now or whatever device you use, and you spend 3 hours trying to look for a movie. So often what I do is I bring this up at the breakfast table. And I say, okay, what movie will we watch tonight? And get a bit of research done before, so that actually when the time comes, whatever the time is, when 8 o'clock comes, the movie is chosen. So we get straight into it. And then sorry, I clicked on too fast there. So dedicating time to discuss the pros and cons of the internet. So, really important that we are, of course, scaffolding. So we do know a little bit more maybe about some of the dangers. We've heard a little bit more about some of the dangers. But it's important to bring them into those conversations and to take the lead from them a lot of the time. So asking open-ended questions, do you think that there are any bad things about the internet? Has anything bad ever happened? Is there anything about it that really annoys you? Is there anything that you don't like about it? If there was one thing you could change about the internet, what would that be? Is there anything that worries you or scares you? So it's about drawing it from them and seeing what their reactions are. But it is important that we give them time to think about what is bad about the internet and what is good about the internet. So, we go back to that space where we're talking about their critical thinking and their ability to keep themselves safe. So the more we draw their attention to the good and the bad, the more they'll be inclined to choose the good. So yeah, it is important that we just to reiterate that point, that we do spend time with them, talking about what they do online. As a great story from one parent, sorry, not from a parent, from a child in Kilkenny. And the child, I said, do you ever talk to your parents about stuff that you're worried about online? And she said, yeah, I did. I tried once. She's about 13. And she said, Mom, I'm having a problem on Snapchat. And her mum said, what's Snapchat? Oh my God. And she was like, look, somebody's been really mean to me in my story. And the mother was like, whoa, your story? What are you talking about, a story? Well, I don't know what you mean. And the girl just gave up. And so really, for that parent, it was just about having a conversation about, had she had a conversation about before about what Snapchat is, about the apps that you're using, about how they benefit and, how they create value for your life and how they allow you to connect with your friends, then that conversation would have run much smoother. And they would have been able to have a discussion about that thing that was worrying the child. And that's why we always go back to these core principles, that the more we communicate with children, the more aware we are of what's going on in their lives, and the more empowered we are to help them with those difficulties. And as always, it's your maturity over your technical knowledge. You don't need to be an expert on Snapchat or Instagram or Minecraft or Roblox to guide them through those problems. It's our maturity, it's our love, it's our support. If they're being bullied online, offline, we can help them through that. We don't need to be experts on these devices. And it's interesting, we'll talk about it later, your children may very well know more about Roblox or Minecraft than you do, so use that knowledge. But, important to have resources as well. Sometimes we forget the power of Google, a child comes along and says, somebody's been mean to me on Snapchat. You haven't a clue what Snapchat is. Google, what is Snapchat? How do I turn Snapchat on private? And usually what I go straight for the videos in Google, watch a 2-minute video, and you'll be an expert in no time. So these are also great resources as well. CommonSenseMedia.com is my number one, and to be honest, I rarely stray out of it because it's very, very good. So if a child says I want to go on TikTok and I have no idea what TikTok is, CommonSenseMedia.com, InternetMatters.org, or ESRI.org. 3 really good websites. Common Sense, as I say, is my number one. I find that they have really good descriptions. I find that they usually have a video, and I like just being able to watch a 2-minute video and going, right, got it, and I can move on. And we, on our website, zico.ie, we have about 20 videos on our website, just guiding you through some of the common problems. So these are great resources if there are things that you're going, I'm really not sure how this works. I'm really not sure what Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok are. They're good places to go to give you those that knowledge that you need yourself. And so key to all of this then, this is about promoting positive, good quality communication and making sure that our children have that skill that they can uh, be able to effectively articulate their, what's good about their internet use and what's bad about it, is to just begin these conversation starters. So these are all almost like role play questions, so have you ever felt like you spent too much time online? And that's actually a really interesting one, because when I talk to young people, I always say to young people, do you think there's something bad about the internet? Do you think it's bad spending too much time on the internet? And they always say, no, we think 20 years is too short. And then I'd say to them, do you ever get like bored, tired, do you ever get frustrated? And they start going, oh yeah, I do actually. And it's really interesting how, when we ask open-ended questions, um, and when we just sort of, keep going, a little bit of persistence with the questions, that young people start to open up and start to realize actually that there are some pros and there are some cons. So key to all this is just taking the time to ask those questions, to engage, to co-facilitate, and to spend some time thinking about what's good and what's bad, um, and have realistic expectations. It's not like we're going to sit down for half an hour and everything's going to be sorted. This is like dipping in year after year after year. My boys are teenagers now, but we still routinely just dip in and have these sort of chats. Um, and so looking to do activities together so that the internet becomes a space where families can spend time together and not just apart. So particularly in this time. So more and more now I'm trying to investigate and look at ways of how particularly I can connect with my parents and connect my children with their grandparents. So we had an online quiz the other night. We're doing our Zoom thing, or our Teams, or our video conferencing. We're going to try a bit of bingo. We're trying to do some puzzles and different sort of things. So we're really just trying to find ways of using the internet together, of watching movies together, and of playing games together, which mostly involves around me with the controller and my children laughing hysterically at me at how completely rubbish I am. But it's fine, because it's just time spent together. And taking, as I say, just reiterating some of those points, that we do take that time to discuss the pros and cons. So really important that we're actually just, taking a little bit of time, sitting down and going, what do you think is good? What do you think is bad? Again, why? So that our young people can be enabled to make these decisions for themselves. They can be empowered to actually make the right choices for themselves. I mean, it's hard. We're spending a lot of time on the internet. We're working from home. We're trying to educate. We're trying to do all of the home things as well as the work things. So it is difficult. They are going to be spending time by themselves. So again, it's to make sure that they have the skills to keep themselves safe while they're on it. And the more we sort of have these positive communications, the more they have that capacity to self-regulate. And that really is so important, that they are empowered and they can regulate themselves on the internet. They can develop those critical thinking skills. And that we can move to this positive adult-child communication. So it's not all about the bad internet and we're blaming this technology. It's about us working together on it. We ask young people, we say to them, this is from some of our research, do you know more than your parents about the internet? And routinely young people will say, yes, we do. So if you have a quick look at the graph there, first class up to sixth class. So by sixth class, you've up to 80% of young people saying, yeah, I know a lot more about online games. You've got 60% of young people saying, I know more about apps. And a lot of the time, this is true. So my default now is not to start from the place of I am the authority. It's to start from the place of even if it's a fiction or if it's a game that we play, to start from the area of my child is the authority. So I'll ask them, how do you protect yourselves from strangers? Rather than telling them, I'll ask them. And a lot of the times, young people are so skilled. And a lot of the time, even if they're not quite sure, their friends know how. So that's a good resource as well to saying, well, do you think your friend would know how to do that? Or so on and so forth. But very often when I talk to young people and I say, look, stranger danger, how do you protect yourselves from strangers? And I always ask them that first. And they'll come back with, oh, I know how to block. They have their stop, block, and tell. Stop talking to them, block them, tell an adult. Or they know how to put themselves into a private group, so they're just talking to themselves, and they're not talking to anybody else. Even though they might be able to play with somebody, they're not talking to anybody else. They know how to block them. They know how to report them. And so it's really interesting gathering that information from the young people, getting an appreciation of where they're at. And then when we understand where they're at, we can just bring them on to the next step. But if we don't sort of take that time to gather information about where they're at and what they already know, then we're starting right down at the bottom. They're getting frustrated and we get into that negative cycle again. We start at what do you know already? We're giving them a sense of competency, that they feel they're respected and trusted, and then we can build up their knowledge. And so key to keeping kids safe and key to sort of, co-regulating working with kids is making sure that every young person has what we call a chat buddy. So really simply, that's just, sorry, I'll go back to that. But what we say in school is we say, look, think of somebody in your life who's over 18, somebody who's close to home, because you want to be able to talk to them immediately, and somebody you trust. So we don't specifically say mom and dad. We say who's over 18, who's an adult, who's close to home, and who do you trust to talk about stuff on the internet. And we encourage all young people to go home, go to that person, and just make a little agreement. Just say, look, if I'm ever worried about stuff on the internet, or if I ever don't know how to do something, I need help figuring something out, can I talk to you? And that's a really reassuring thing for a young child to have, that they know that they can always go and talk to somebody. And of course, key to that is making an agreement and making a pact. And key to that pact is, I'm not going to freak out if you come to me. It's so, so important that we as parents assure that young person, look, you can come and talk to me and we'll problem solve. Again, I've talked to thousands of young kids and I always say to them, why don't you talk to your parents? And number one is because they freak out. They freak out and they take away my phone. So if we want them to talk to us, it is about looking at those two things. So again, encouraging positive relationships. So it's important for you to say to your child, take this opportunity tonight to say to your child, look, I'm here. You can always come and talk to me and we'll be able to problem solve and work through these things. I'm not going to freak out. It's not going to be a negative conversation. It's going to be, how do we help each other and how do we keep each other safe? And so part of us is helping you to do this is, we've sent out our drawing competition for this week. But of course, there's 3 sections on the drawing competition. So we're hitting all those markers. So we're going to have discussions. Things that we're going to do, ways that we can connect and teach with each other. So this is emailed out to all of you. So if we just go through this in a bit of detail. So the first thing is to find your chat buddy. So, we're encouraging all the young people in your life to find that chat buddy, find that trusted person. Of course, you may obviously want to make sure that it's yourself. And like I said, so that's about reassuring them that there's nothing they can't say to you. Still, one of the most powerful things that was ever said in any of our seminars was a teenage girl, who said, she just came out with it. She said, I'd love if my parents just said, it doesn't matter. You can come to me and talk to me about whatever. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to, blame you. It doesn't matter what it is. We'll figure it out. And so it's important that we offer that reassurance to children that it really doesn't matter what it is. I'm not going to freak out. We're going to work through together. So that's the first part of our drawing competition for this week. Second part, So discuss and write about what a chat buddy should do. So to actually sort of, the two of you working together, or the child on its own figuring out, well, what should this relationship be? How should it work? So again, giving them that empowerment that they're trying to figure out for themselves. How should this, what's the benefits of having a chat buddy? What are the good things about it, and what can they do, and how can they help? And then we have to draw the picture, so you can trace the picture onto a blank piece of paper and color it in. Excuse me, and that can be uploaded on any of the platforms with the hashtag ZicoDrawingComp. That's on the poster there as well, and we'll have a little competition around that. So ZicoDrawingComp. And the final thing is then a tasks do. So we're encouraging them to, encouraging young people to actually make the video call to granny and granddad, to an aunt or an uncle, to reach out in that way, and to actually teach them how to use it, and like, this can be hilarious, and it usually is hilarious. We've maybe all seen the videos on the internet or the memes about grandparents and their difficulties with technology, but a lot of the time there's a lot of humor around it, and there's a lot of fun around it. And I love putting children in that place where they are teachers, where you're giving them that little bit of responsibility, and it's their job to teach somebody and to work through. And most kids really respond to it and really enjoy it. And it's a nice thing to do in this time as well, where our elderly relatives are cocooned and they're maybe cut off a little bit. So that's sort of bringing us all together as a community, and an activity that we can all do together. But then just reiterating those key messages to identify chat buddies, and to demonstrate active mediation and co-use, so that we really are, all of the things we've talked about tonight, so that we're sitting down, spending time with them, asking them about their internet use, asking them what they're worried about, what they're not worried about, working on doing things together. So working on creating a safe environment together, and then empowering that child to teach an older person. So yeah, and just, going back to almost to where we started, you are the digital leader. It is, just like we teach our children how to keep safe in the real world, the safe cross code, stranger danger. It's important that we're taking that lead and teaching them how to stay safe on the internet. The more children can safely navigate the internet, and this is from one of the studies that's in our presentation, the more positive they experience and the less risk they face online. And as always, it's going to be your maturity and your love and your support that's going to guide our children through, and not our technical knowledge. I never worry that my children know more about the games they're playing or the apps that they're using, because I know at the end of the day, I'm still in a place where it's my maturity is actually the thing that they need more than my technical knowledge on the apps that they're using. So next week, or in 2 weeks rather, we're going to be looking at digital identity, and the two parts of digital identity. How much personal information are they giving away, and what does the internet say about them? So we'll be looking at that on Wednesday the 22nd, and we'll have another worksheet and drawing competition at that time. Now, the poll wasn't working earlier, so let me just see. Maybe it is now. Maybe there was a technical difficulty, but it's always good. We love hearing from you guys. We love getting a bit of feedback from you guys. So, when we hear back from you, it really helps us to design these presentations and to make them more effective. But I'm just looking at that now, and I don't see any responses to it. So I think that there may be a technical issue with that. So we'll not worry too much about it. Instead, what you can do is let us know. Let us know, info@zico.ie. We'd love to hear what you thought of the webinar tonight. We'd love to hear what you would like to be included in future ones. And we'd love to hear where you heard about us from, because that just helps us to be more effective about reaching out to a broader audience. And you can, and that's our website, zico.ie, zico.ie. Like I say, we have a free internet safety booklet. We've got plenty of videos there, lots of great resources, Parenting Hub, where, if you're worried about one thing in particular, you can dip in there and get some information on that. So I'm going to see now if there are any questions over in the questions and answer section. And so I see something there about sending on information. That's okay. And I'm going to quickly look at some of the questions that came in earlier. So best parental control software. There's a host of things out there. You know, when I started with this, and when I started working with when my children first had access to the internet, one of the things that I thought was really important was that it was at the very beginning that it was all communication based. Um, so at the very beginning of my journey with my young kids, the internet all happened in one room, and there was an adult there all the time. Uh, and the whole idea behind that was that we our first engagement was the internet, was around communication. So I would, you know, talk to them about their apps, talk to them about how they were using them. I would routinely dip into their history with them, not snooping, but just say, you know, what are the kind of stuff that you've been looking at? Was there anything there that sort of worried you and bugged you? And they got used to sort of saying to me, you know, this thing popped up or that thing popped up, or I didn't look for it. It just happened. Um, and you know, really important for me that it's not judgmental or I'm not being shocked or anything like that. That I'm sort of going, yeah, that's fine. Look, sometimes these things happen, and here's how we fix that. Here's how we can make sure that that doesn't happen again. We can use a custom filter, or we can use this blocking software. So I think that that's, you know, it's never important. The power of that is always going to be important. Um, but as my kids got older and our lives got a bit busier, we did go for a technological solution. The one we went for is an Irish startup company called iKids, IKYDZ, which is a useful uh, tool. It just, you know, let's say on my phone here, I can sort of pick up the phone and I can see, you know, what's being done on the internet, what sites have been accessed, how much time they're spending on various different devices, and I can turn the internet off. For meals, I can turn it off for one child and leave it on for the other child, and so on and so forth. So it allows me a good bit of it allows me to more effectively monitor and keep them safe. But I always do it with them and not against them. Um, how much time is allowed? It's something that we talked about last week, and just very briefly, I think the key message here is that we have a family media plan. Each child is different. Each child is unique. So I think that what's more important is you spending time, like we talked about this evening, spending time with your child. The more time you spend in co-use with your child, the more you'll be able to understand how much time is the right amount of time. So a child flicking through pictures, you know, this isn't great quality time. It's individualized. They're looking at other people's lives. They're starting to feel bad about their own life. You know, if that's your child, I'm sort of thinking 10, 20 minutes. If your child is coding and creating, you know, writing software for games, you know, that might be an hour. But I don't have the answer to these questions, and I don't believe in generalized timings. You know the answer to this more than anyone else. If you're not sure about it, spend more time with your child. But the key message is to make a decision, and stick to that decision so that the child learns to self-regulate. Um, Basic safety monitoring tools, you know, there are a lot. Family sharing is another one that I think is really important. So family sharing, you know, look it up on Google. It just means that you are the lead account. So whenever they want to download a game, whenever they want to sort of buy something or anything like that, you get a message that you have to be asked for permission. So their accounts come in under your account. So whatever they're doing on the internet goes essentially through your email or through your account. So it's a great way of working with your child to keep them safe. Um, all around safety and guarding. You know, I think that we've addressed a lot of these questions in our talk here tonight. How to make internet access safe for kids and easy for parents to install, monitor, and devolve. So I think we've answered a lot of that. How to cope with your child's anger, disappointment when the allotted time is ended. Yeah, really, really good question. And one of the things I always think about this is, you know, I've done a bit of work on gamification. So using using this skills and elements that go into games in education or business or other areas. And essentially, what happens when a child plays a game is the game makes them feel good. So if you look at any of the games, the second you turn it on, you're getting points, or you're being rewarded. It's a complete reward-based system. Uh, so, you get points for all the things you do. Bing, 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 bing. There's usually lights. There's usually a sound effect. And then there's tiers. You've leveled up, and then there's medals. And so all the time, the game is reinforcing behavior and making you feel good as a human being about playing it, making you feel like you're achieving all the time. And then there's competition as well. So it's connecting you with your friends. So there's a leaderboard. So, you want to get higher on the leaderboard. There's a social element. So you're playing with your friends. So it's connecting you to your friends. And sometimes, if we have a negative approach to the internet, or if we're sort of like, get off that internet's a bad thing, then this sometimes helps to create that negativity around coming off the internet, because the child feels that they're coming back into a more negative space. So what can we do about that? Well, one of the best pieces of advice that, and we see it used in schools as well, is just the lollipop stick jar, or the jar of things that we like to do together. So in the morning, when everybody's calm and everybody's happy, just write out all of the things that you like to do together in the real world, whatever that is for your child. If it's going for a walk, if it's playing with the dog, if it's drawing, if it's doing music, if it's playing football, whatever that thing is, to write out all of those things. What are the things that you love doing that aren't on the internet? Putting them into a jar and having that jar ready for that time. So then what I do is I prep the child. So I say, listen, now we agreed, we've got our social media plan. We agreed that it was half an hour. There's 10 minutes left. So, we're dropping that idea into their head, so it's not going to be a surprise. We've got 5 minutes left. You probably won't be able to start a new game. There's a minute left. You want to start thinking about what you're going to do afterwards. And then you bring out the jar and straight away go, okay, let's do something positive together. Let's do something fun together. So that, time after the internet is as much fun, or is as looked forward to as time on the internet. Let me see. So I know we're a little bit over time. We're about 4 minutes over time. You don't say software for kids. Any tips on limit screen time education of the dangers? Parents. Okay. So I think, for a lot of the questions that I'm seeing here tonight, a lot of it is addressed in what we talked about here this evening, addressed in having more positive communication, helping kids to figure out what's good time on the internet, what's bad time on the internet, and particularly for teenagers, because teenagers routinely say, there's nothing bad about spending all day on the internet. So what I do with my guys is, like, I capture them in the moments that they're bored. So if they've been on the internet for a while, now we do have our family media plan, but even within that, they get bored. So I'll capture them at that moment to go, like, how are you feeling right now? Or you're a little bit bored. I can see it in you. You're a little bit bored, or you're a little bit frustrated, or your eyes are sore. I can see this sort of thing going on. So I'm trying to capture those moments to help them so that they can then go, oh, actually, I'm spending too much time on the internet. It makes me feel bad. It makes me feel a bit bored, lonely, disconnected, frustrated. And then, really looking at those activities that we can do together. So what are the activities that we can do together? What are the positive things that we can do together? As well as remembering what the internet is doing a lot of the time, especially for fifth, sixth, how it is connecting them into their social group and how they're not seeing that difference. So if we're sort of going, I get it. I get that it's really important and that you're connected and you're having fun with your friends. But also as a family, it's important that we have this time together as well. Okay, so I hope that addressed your questions. I'd just like to thank you again for taking this time with us. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. So a very happy Easter. And it's strange, we've been off school for so long and now we're off school for a bit more. But I hope you enjoyed this time, and I hope you all keep safe and keep well.
one too.